if you've been watching the last half hour, or if you watch it on cable, or if you were last 15 minutes, we had a young gentleman, Shelter again. Give us that name again, my brother.
Sheltered again. My name is DeNarvel Parks.
According to here, you went and said Mr. Parks returned to life in the New York City shelter system with his sons, just to leave the system and be separated from his boys and find himself living out of his van in order to survive while he's still employed. This true story have a bit of a twist as compared to his first book, Shelter. In this book, you tell your readers about the ups and downs, right, of your journey to move forward as a turned person. How did you get sheltered out? How did you went back into the shelter again? Tell us what happened on that.
I went back into the shelter. I wind up. I lost my apartment.
How did you lose your apartment?
I lost my apartment. I had Section 8. I had a woman that lived with me. She helped me to raise my boys, which I always embraced the word of a woman. And we broke up, and I got stuck with all the bills. She was working and she paid the degree of the bills, and I paid the rent. And when we broke up, I got stuck with her part of the bills, and it was more than I can handle. I fell back and paying my rent to my landlord, and my landlord wound up putting me out through courts, and I went back into the shelter system. I returned to the shelter.
Okay. On your return to the shelter, you left your boys with
their mother. When I returned to the shelter again, I didn't want to go through the whole process, the running around, because the shelter, the city plays a lot of games with you. So I didn't want to take my kids through that turmoil and the psychology of head trips of going in and out of the shelter and running from one place to another. So I talked to my boys one day after we had to return to a path, if you know about that. That's the main area where you go through first. And I talked to my boys and I asked them if they wanted to continue to go in and out the shelter and get the runaround. And they decided that they didn't want to do it, so I sent them to their mother's house, and I wound up becoming homeless on the streets while I was working. I still had a 9 to 5.
Okay, so you could have a 9 to 5 job and still be homeless, especially with the rents out here. And then people talk about, well, affordable apartments. Yeah, affordable apartments. Yeah, you go through the back door. That's the new thing now. When this happened, what was your reaction?
It was very unpleasant for me to be into the shelter again, because I had been there 5 years prior to that, and coming back into the shelter was just like the last thing on my mind. But I had to do it. I had nowhere to go. I didn't want to keep running from family members' house.
That's another thing, though, too, is that I have people who I knew. They got into the shelter system, and I have a recent experience. Sometimes a family member could wear your welcome out. Is that true?
Absolutely true.
Mm-hmm. Because they may put up with you for a day. I remember I had someone spend the night over my house with me. I said, no, you got to go the next day. You got to go. You want me to leave the window open? I never left no windows open. Come in my house. No. No, you got to go. I got a certain lifestyle. You're not gonna break up me watching Highway Patrol and Leave It to Beaver. And then it's the menace. You ain't breaking up my lifestyle. You got to go.
Well, see, I didn't want to have that burden of just having my kids there, having, intruding on somebody else's privacy and the way they live.
But also, too, with the shelter system, too, they would sit back here and they would sit back here and tell you that, well, they find you got a house or something, or your relatives got a house, well, why don't you go stay with them?
Yeah.
and that mean you have a brother or sister, like I'm not saying I can't live with my sister, or that, but my sister got a lifestyle of her own.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to interrupt nobody's lifestyle.
Absolutely.
My son got a lifestyle of his own. I'm not going to sit back and interrupt his lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Other people did interrupt his lifestyle. That's another story.
And they are, right?
Absolutely.
It's like the man who came to dinner and never left.
Well, like I said, I didn't really want to intrude on my family members. I did though, but I stayed over a couple of friends' house, and then, I mean, when you have children, you don't want to, I mean, that's a lot, they gotta be fed, they gotta have some place to sleep, and that's a lot.
Let me tell you this though. I had someone I knew. They told me that they went to this guy's house, and next thing you know, they said, well, I had to get out from there. I said, why? They were friends, but he said, he wanted to be a little more closer to friends. I said, well, look, you sleeping in the man's bed. What you expect? The man ain't gonna sit back and let you stay in his house for nothing.
You gotta pay something, right?
You got to pay something.
Water. Somebody get him some water, please.
Go ahead.
Oh my God. No, but it's how the system goes. But sometimes some people put themselves in the shelter too now.
Yeah.
Because they have, I know some of these women and men sit back here, they'll say, well, I can throw out my apartment, I can go to the shelter. But the shelter is not a pretty place.
It's not.
Tell us that, it's not a pretty place, especially that sometimes you go to like these men's shelters. I remember there's a guy at the train station. I mean, this guy is pitiful. He be begging me every night. He said, well, mister, I can go there in the shelter. But you have people who are actually working. There's also too, you got to keep one eye open. Because you don't know what they're gonna be doing there.
Yeah, but that's an adult shelter.
That's
Adult shelters are different from family shelters.
Yeah, what's the difference?
Oh, like I said, like you said, you have to be sleeping with one eye open. And when you're in the family shelter, you don't have to do that because you have your own apartment. When you're in an adult shelter, you're sleeping in one big gymnasium or lunchroom or whatever the structure is, and there's nothing but beds there. So you definitely have to sleep with one eye open. You have to deal with a lot of noise. You have to deal with a lot of male or females, who are, angry in life, keeping you up, stressing you out. I didn't have to go through that in the family shelter. In the family shelter,
I mean, in the adult shelter, I can't watch Dennis the Man in the nighttime.
No, well, if you do, you can go to TV for that, but you gotta fight for the TV. You gotta fight for the TV. So I did a little something on adult shelters, so I know a little bit about the shelter life.
Also, too, we were talking, Ms. Fraser, we were talking minutes ago. We talked about with shelters. Also, too, a lot of these kids, young kids who go to group homes. Some of them, most of them, end up in the shelters. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah. What happens is they age out of group homes. When you age out of group homes, which is every state is different, which is from 18. Some states are 18, some states are 21. Once they age out, and the system ain't taught them nothing about responsibility and disciplining them, and they just give them a certain amount of money and tell them to go on their way, they're homeless. Wow. That's when they wind up going into it's a constant revolving door. You still stay in the system. You go into the shelter.
Damn.
You come from a group home. You come from ACS. I'm sorry.
Child
you come
protection.
from foster care.
Child protection.
From foster care, you go into group homes. From group homes, you go to a shelter, or you go to jail. But you're still in that system. It's a revolving door with black people. It's like the lady said. It's one of your speakers, one of your guests said. It's money for these people. We're money for these people. Constant money.
Wow.
So,
how long did you take to rent this shelter again? How long did you take to rent?
Shelter again took me about, I'll say about almost a year and a half to write shelter again.
You say
because I had a lot on my mind, so I just kept writing and didn't stop.
But also, we want to lay on this emphasis that people who have jobs in the way how the situations out here now, they could end up in a shelter, right?
Anybody can look at shelter.
Damn.
Anybody can.
They could have a fire.
You
You
lose
go
that
home
apartment.
and boom,
That's
it.
right. That's right.
Oh my
And
God.
You're absolutely right. There's plenty of ways you can wind up ending in the shelter. You can have fire. People come from other states. They don't have no family here, so they wind up in the shelter. They come from other countries. I heard a lot of young ladies when I was in the shelter say that they were in the shelter because their boyfriend was on drugs and they didn't know responsibility.
Yeah,
They wound up in the shelter. The mother's boyfriend tried to sodomize the little girl. The mother's not believing. Their daughters. The daughter goes into the shelter. There's a lot of ways you can wind up into the shelter. But my book, this book is a motivational book. This is
Okay, what's the difference?
it's different from this book, which
Okay,
is
we're not
Sheltered.
selling you on the air, but go ahead.
Right, which is Sheltered, is that this book is an uplifting book. This is to encourage more fathers to be responsible, take care of their children, and it tells you about the shelter life. This book is an uplifting book. I'm trying to encourage people who are down and out, who are in the shelter, just living a negative life, that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Just stay positive, keep talking to God, because if you believe in God, you know you got to have God in your heart to get to the next level. Not allowing people to get up in your head and tell you the things you can and can't do, and just reaching for the stars. And if you're doing all that, and most of all, if you're loving yourself, if you love yourself, because all this is irrelevant if you don't love yourself. If you're loving yourself and you have goals, no matter how far down you are, you can always reach the top.
On that note, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us today on the LMS show. Give them a big hand. And we're going to come back with something that everybody gets a phone call every once in a while. And it's from a debt collector. That's another story. Katrina Phyllis is going to fill us in on that right here. If you watch it on the cable, right here on the LMS show, and take it down.